Hello Raiders, today we're breaking down exactly how to maximize your XP gains to level up efficiently in Arc Raiders. Whether you are new to the game or you have already wreaked havoc topside, this guide will help you progress faster, allowing you to unlock more skill points to spend in your skill tree, and in general, make your stay at Speranza much easier. Before we dive into how to best grind XP, let's take a look at what progression actually looks like. In Arc Raiders, every single action you do contributes towards gaining XP. Not only do you gain XP from destroying Arc or other raiders, you get XP equivalent to how much damage you deal to both of them. Scavenging is also another great source of experience. The more bodies, containers, or airdrops you loot, the better. Not to mention, the time spent in raid and eventually safely extracting is also a big contributor towards your total experience gained in the raid. Eventually, once you get past some of the early game quests, questing will become a big part of obtaining experience. These can range from 5,000 experience up to 20 or 30,000, depending on the difficulty of the task at hand. The reason we're trying to maximize our XP gains is to level up as fast as possible. One level up equals 1 point in a skill tree, which means higher your level is, bigger your advantage over other raiders will be as well. There are 4 main ways to earn XP in Arc Raiders. First is completing quests from traders in Speranza. Like I said before though, some of the early game quests do not reward experience, but once you get further down the line, you will start earning experience upon completion of certain quests. These vary from difficulty, and the XP reward can range from 5,000 to over 30,000 XP. So don't be alarmed if you don't see your XP bar tick up on completion of some of the early game quests. Second is combat and looting topside. Every fight with the Arc or other raiders will reward you with experience based on damage dealt, and eventually upon their death as well. This experience varies massively between arcs you fight as well. Destroying a wasp will give you 100 experience from killing it, and probably around 300 experience from all the damage dealt to it. But killing a rocketeer will net you 500 experience from the kill, and potentially thousands of experience from the damage dealt to it, since it is more armored and it just has more health overall. Also, scavenging is a big part of accumulating experience. Depending on what you loot, you can earn between 200 to 500 experience from each container searched. This includes dead bodies, downed Arc. Rocketeer, for example, has multiple lootable containers once it's killed, and you can rack up another 1 to 2,000 XP from that alone. Also, don't forget, you don't have to be the first one to open the container. If your squad opens a bunch of containers, you can go through them one by one without actually fully looting them, and you will gain XP from that as well. Third is simply time spent in raid and eventually extracting. You get around 181 XP per minute spent topside, and eventually you get a nice chunk of experience if you successfully extract. And finally, there's going to be trials to complete every single week. These are harder challenges that come in multiple difficulty levels, and if you perform well, you will be ranked on Speranza's Raider leaderboards, and I expect there will be decent rewards included upon completing said trials. And I assume some of those rewards contain XP as well. If you wish to maximize your XP per raid, it is important to figure out what exactly it is you're trying to do once you land topside. First things first, pick up a quest that complements whatever it is you're trying to do in raid. For example, if you're going for PvP, you're bound to run into some trouble with the arcs. So if you kill a bunch of wasps and hornets for a quest, be prepared for that. Bring enough ammunition and heals, because all the shooting will catch the attention of other raiders, which will lead into further fights with both the raiders and other arcs. If instead you're going for a chill loot run, see if you have a particular quest that requires you to loot for a certain item. For example, there's an early game quest for Lance where you need to search 5 containers and get 15 pieces of fabric for them. This is perfect if you're mostly trying to just stay out of trouble. Also a quick tip, if you need basic items like fabric for example, you can salvage items for it, and it can be done outside of the raid as well. Items don't necessarily have to be found topside. I mention this because salvaging items while in stash generally yields more items per salvage. Regardless if you're going for a loot run or going for PvP, it is important that you loot as many containers as possible. With it obviously comes the risk that you make a lot of noise while breaching. Consider putting some of your skill points into proficient prior in the conditioning skill tree. This allows you to breach doors and containers faster. You could also invest points into gentle pressure to limit the noise you make, but honestly, I think it's a waste of points beyond the 1 point that is required to unlock proficient prior. Most containers give you 200 XP for searching them, but the more risky or valuable containers such as airdrops or looting the body of a rocketeer for example, can give you up to 500 experience. Also, Looter's Instinct under Survival skill tree is a must regardless of what build you're going for. Being able to loot containers quicker will be helpful in both the loot runs and PvP situations where looting quick can be a matter of life and death. But also, do not forget to check bodies. You don't have to fully loot them, just go to a body, press search, and you can back out immediately for 500 free experience. Same goes with the arcs you've destroyed, search them for loot, and remember that some of the arcs break into multiple pieces. So depending on the arc, you can land up to extra 2000 experience from looting alone. Also, it's worth keeping in mind that you can spawn in the middle of the raid as well. Sometimes you start the raid with 30 minutes left, sometimes you spawn in with 17 minutes left. This means that a lot of loot might be scooped up already, but it's still worth going to the containers and searching them for the XP. Even though it is fairly tedious, it does stack up XP quite nicely. But if you're someone who enjoys PvP like myself, you can go and rack up a solid amount of XP every single raid, as you get XP from damaging other raiders and knocking them out. Also, if you play in a squad, you do get points per assist as well. As it stands, assists grant you 250 XP, and knockouts, aka kills, net you 500 XP. Damage dealt to the raiders will obviously be added on top of that. I don't exactly know how much XP you get per damage, but from my experience, it's usually around 500 XP per kill. Could be less if you eliminate a player that is already without shields and very low health, obviously. But looting their bodies always gives you 500 XP. So for the sake of the video, let's say we got 3 kills. This is 1500 experience from elimination, another 1500 from damage dealt, and if you go and loot every single one of them as well, this is another 1500 on top of that. So from 3 kills alone, you get 4500 XP. Now add time spent in raid, looting other containers, destroying and looting arc, and that is how you rack up a massive amounts of XP every single raid. And once you get out, that is 181 XP added per minute spent in raids, and another chunk added on top of that for returning safely, aka extracting. I couldn't figure out what exactly determines the XP gain from extracting, but for me it always ranged between 1 and 2000 XP per extract. Before we move on to things we should avoid doing, let's quickly summarize what we can do to maximize our XP topside once again. First things first, pick a quest that aligns with your goals. Bring enough ammunition and heals, because destroying and looting arc is a great way of accumulating XP, but they also attract more arc and other raiders. No matter if you eliminate arc or raiders, always search them for loot if possible, but you also don't have to fully search them in order to get said XP. Some arc also break into multiple pieces, search all of them. Not only can you get really valuable loot, you rack up some really valuable XP. Kills net you 500 XP, assists 250 XP, plus damage dealt. Search as many containers as possible and take appropriate perks in your skill tree to limit the noise you make and to speed up your searching progress. Also, not all containers are equal in the XP rewarded. Most give 200 XP, bodies give 500 XP, and the more dangerous containers such as airdrops and remains of dangerous arc such as leapers and rocketeer can give up to 500 per container. But since they split into multiple pieces, this usually racks up to 1 to 2000 XP range. And most importantly, survive. XP is great and all, but always play to survive. It's always better to go back to Speranza getting just 2000 XP and some loot than getting 5000 XP and coming out empty-handed. That safe return bonus stacks up over the course of 20, 30, 40 or even 100 raids, so that is just something to think about. Always play for survival. And this leads me to the final segment of the video, mistakes to avoid in raids. We just went over the most important thing, surviving, but in order to survive more raids, you need to have an idea how your raid is going to play out. As soon as you get into raid, open up the map and see where you are. Then look for an extract that is available for you, and how long do you have until it closes. Then if you have a certain quest in mind, plan out a route where you can execute it best, and then simply start following your route. It should not take longer than 10 to 15 seconds to figure out a very rough route for your raid. But sometimes, it's best to not follow your plan to a T. If halfway through a raid you're exceeding your carry weight limit, just see if you have an extraction close by, or just skip an area you initially planned on looting. And just extract. Even if it means not completing your initial quest, you can always come back and finish it next raid. So have a plan in mind when you go into a raid, map out a route for said raid once you get in, but don't be afraid to deviate in order to survive, as that is the most important goal for every single one of your adventures topside. Secondly, do not engage enemies you are not prepared to fight. Even though rocketeers can give you a ton of XP, they are not that easy to destroy. Even in squads, it takes a fair bit of effort and bullets, not to mention all the noise it generates, so avoid trying to go for the big boys unless you are absolutely certain you have what it takes to take them down. And I'm mainly talking about ammunition, heals and shields and the right weapons, not your ability to hit shots or dodge rockets. And to wrap it up, remember that consistency is what gets you ahead of other raiders. Consistent raids with 5000 XP every single time as you extract, compared to the occasional 15,000 XP raid, but most raids you are turned into food for worms. That's what will get you ahead in the long run, stacking up the small wins. But also, remember to enjoy yourself out there. If any of my tips come in the way of you having fun, then it's not worth following. If you want the full send every Rocketeer and every PvP encounter, then go for it if that's what gives you the most enjoyment out of the game. Thank you for watching, my friends, and see you topside.